PodCastle, episode 801 for Tuesday the 22nd of August 2023. Point of Order by Taryn Fraser, read by Danny Daly and rated PG-13. Good morning, good day, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to PodCastle, the flying castle of fantasy fiction. I'm your host, Matt Dovey, and it's my particular pleasure to present a PodCastle original for your perusal. Point of Order by Taryn Fraser, narrated by Danny Daly. Before we start, I want to talk about something that doesn't necessarily affect us directly, but is seismic for short speculative fiction as a whole. Next month, in only a couple of weeks, Amazon are closing their Kindle Publishing for Periodicals program, which is to say, their magazine subscriptions on Kindle. This, in the words of Neil Clark, editor of Clarkesworld, is going to be brutal. Amazon is the £800 gorilla in the ebook world, and Kindle subscriptions were the most convenient way of getting most magazines there. I have a Kindle, and it's the way I've always done my subscriptions when available. It was not by choice that most magazines relied on Amazon for such a large portion of their subscription base. It was, simply, a reflection of the market balance. Unfortunately, the unilateral decision of this company with a market cap of, and I just checked, literally $1.32 trillion, is now threatening to wipe out small fiction magazines that have a turnover measured in the thousands, and a profit margin likely written with the red pen. Fantasy magazine has already announced that it's closing, as it was struggling to break even before this took effect. Most magazines are on a knife edge, operating only because staff draw no pay and instead invest hours and stress into the venture. And this, absolutely, will be enough to tip more of them over into closure. We have just lived through perhaps the best 10 years for short speculative fiction we've ever known, with a true broadening of writing perspectives, new forms, greater depth and maturity. It has been, as I keep trying to make happen, not a golden age, but a prismatic age. But the closure of this programme, and the commensurate drop in income, plus the collapse of Twitter and the subsequent shattering of a social media landscape so vital for crowdfunding, on top of the new problem of being spammed by AI submissions, this is a point of real crisis, friends. I cannot emphasise that enough. Amazon first announced its decision to the magazines last December, but speaking personally, I've had zero emails whatsoever from Amazon about this. I only know about it from social media, from Clarkesworld and Uncanny and others shouting about it. You will be able to subscribe to some magazines through Kindle Unlimited, if you're a member of that, if they were invited, and even if the rates offered there are around half of what they were under KPP. The more practical solution, and the one I've been building up to here, the real reason I'm detailing all of this, is that you need to go to the websites of any magazine you subscribe to on your Kindle and investigate the other ways to support them. Please. Many of them offer Patreons or subscriptions through waitlist books for US customers. They have all been reaching out through social media as much as they can, but unfortunately Amazon refused to provide anyone with an email list of their current subscribers to aid with outreach. These are desperate times, and every person who picks up a subscription via a new method is going to be one more strand in the woven lifeline. If enough of us can do that, and I'm speaking now as a reader and a fan and nothing to do with this castle, we can make a real and genuine difference to the markets you'll save now, to the new authors who'll get their break in them, and to the readers who will see themselves in a story that otherwise would have had nowhere to go. Short fiction is the fertile soil in which speculative fiction grows, and it is in our power to save it. Speaking of stories to see yourself in, here's one that spoke to me. Your author today is Taryn Fraser. She's had short fiction featured in places like Apex Magazine, Mysterion and Daily Science Fiction. Her poetry can be found in Eye to the Telescope, Lighten Up Online and Autumn Sky Daily. She and her RPG playing husband live, write and game in the greater Philadelphia area with their 4 chaotic good children. Connect on Twitter at TarinRoseWriter or Instagram at tarinrose.writer, and read more at tarinfraser.com. Danny Daly is your narrator. Danny is a jack of many trades, master of none. But seeing as she loves the rogue life, that's okay with her. You can hear stories she's narrated on 4 of the Escape Artist podcasts, Starship Sofa, Glittership and Asimov's Science Fiction podcast. Or you can buy the audiobook she's narrated at audible.com under the name Danielle Daly. You can also contact her on Twitter at Danuli_Danny or at DanielleDailyReads.com if you'd like her to read for you. And now pay attention, for our tale is about to begin, and you're up first in the initiative order.
Point of Order by Tarin Fraser. Read by Danny Daly. Behind his screen, the Game Master cracks his knuckles. Okay, folks. This is session 0 of a shiny new campaign. So let's go around and introduce your characters. Bob, since you're hosting, how about you start? Bob scratches his belly through his "This is how I roll" t-shirt.
Borg is a barbarian half-orc with heavy weapons mastery and a halberd.
He spins around in the office chair he's pulled up to his dining room table.
Simple, yet elegant.
And Bork's background? The GM prompts. Bob coughs.
He's a soldier?
Across the table, Amanda snorts and dumps her dice out of a tooled leather pouch. Let me guess, you pulled his character build from a Reddit post. She flips her blue braid over her shoulder. I'm playing as Mandia, an elven wizard who wields a staff of bloodsteel. After being ostracized from her clan, she has roamed the wasteland alone, a law unto herself. She has a weasel familiar and enjoys moonlit. Bob makes a snoring sound, and she breaks off to glare at him. The GM closes his eyes. Remember the rules. No sniping, Bob and Amanda mutter together. Indeed. Sanvi, your turn. Sanvi straightens her glasses. Sanj is a dragonborn paladin who carries a warhammer and was tragically orphaned at birth, chorus Amanda and Bob. They're sniping again, Sanvi whines. The GM shrugs. You do play the same character every campaign. He jots down a note, then says, Last but not least is Dan. Tell us about Danath, your bard. Dan stares down at his character sheet for a long minute. He opens his mouth, then closes it, loosens his tie, clears his throat.
You okay, Dan, man?
Bob asks, joggling his elbow.
Yeah. No.
Dan scrapes a hand down his face.
Isabel left yesterday.
Silence reigns. Then Sanvi asks, Like, she left? A shaky exhale from Dan.
Yeah.
Another pause. Then Sanvi asks, Who will paint our minis now? She catches the dagger-like glares from the rest of the party. I mean, that sucks, dude. I'm so sorry, Amanda whispers. She reaches a tentative hand toward Dan's, where it rests on the table, then pulls back. Bob throws an arm around Dan's shoulders, but Dan forces a smile and shrugs him off.
Let's just play Everdeep. This world sucks.
He pours himself a shot of whiskey. The GM adjusts his screen. If you're sure. He places one hand on the map in the middle of the table, and the other over the players' 4 miniatures. Okay, here we go. He mutters a string of words, guttural and strange. The players around the table close their eyes, and the violent oranges and greens of Bork's cluttered dining room run like watercolors, taking the adventurers with them. The colors resolve into grim shades of gray and black, and the 4 adventurers stagger on their new footing, a merciless field of flints. A voice booms from on high. Castle Everdeep clings to the side of an obsidian cliff overlooking the Sea of Oblivion. Your adventuring party has heard rumors of the great wealth hidden there, but also of the terrible dangers that await trespassers. You stop at a village at the foot of the cliff, too.
Let's skip the village,
Danath cuts in, pointing with his lute toward the black castle looming over them. Bork shoots him a worried look.
Danath, we should pump villagers for info about what's waiting for us in the castle. And I say we skip it,
Danath says, his jaw working. Who made you king? Blusters Sanj, then grunts when Asmandia nudges her with her staff. Sanj sighs and shoulders her warhammer. Fine. Let's go straight to the castle, but don't expect me to make saving throws for you. As you cross the Bridge of Sorrows leading to the castle, a horde of goblins pours out from a crevice in the rock wall opposite you. They've got 2 hellhounds on iron leashes, and every time one of them barks, a gout of flame shoots 10 feet from its mouth. Bork cracks his knuckles.
I say we go with our usual MO. Sanj and I will hack and slash, while Asmandia and Danath fire from a safe distance. I charge the enemy, Danath grits out. Asmandia grabs his arm. But you're a bard. Wouldn't it be better if you tried to, negotiate? I charge the enemy, Danath repeats, drawing a very small dagger. With his free hand, he pulls a bottle from his doublet, bites the cork out, and downs the contents. Sanj groans. I smell a total party kill. The GM sighs. Roll for initiative. Asmandia raises her staff, and it crackles with purple fire. Get ready to back him up, guys. I'll get my lightning bolts online. Danath rolls. By the toenails of Athazar, breathes Bork. The GM knocks on the table as the blacks and grays of Everdeep melt back into the garish colors of Bob's apartment. Danath single-handedly lays waste to the goblin horde, thanks to that natural 20. He stretches and gets up. That's it for tonight, my little band of sociopaths. Are we good for next Tuesday? After the chorus of yeses, Bob relieves Dan of his whiskey glass and hauls him to his feet. Okay, killer. Let's get you an Uber.
Holding Dan by the shoulders, he guides him downstairs to the curb outside his apartment building, scolding as he goes.
You know better than to drink in and out of character, especially when you've had nothing but whey bread for 2 sessions. And you call yourself a doctor. A doctor of physics, Dan protests, then lurches away to vomit behind an azalea. That whiskey was expensive, Bob calls. And the potion wasn't cheap either. He waves to Amanda, rocketing out of the parking lot on her motorcycle. Dan staggers back, tieless now, and the pair wait in silence until the Uber's headlights approach. Dan runs a hand through his thinning hair. Thanks for all this. His gesture encompasses the apartment, the azalea, the Uber. It's keeping me going. Hey, that's one of our rules, right? Never leave a party member behind. Bob shoves his hands in the pockets of his cargo shorts. Is there anything else I can do for you, man? Dan cracks a small smile. As the car door closes, he says, This is more than enough. As the adventuring party meanders around a subterranean room, the GM's voice booms out of the dark. People, you've been combing the first level of the castle for 5 weeks straight. And if we stay here any longer, I swear I will end you all. That gets some nervous laughs.
as Mandia lights a narrow stairway with the violet glow of her staff. Let's see what baddies are waiting for us up there. I'm dying to try my new spell. Others murmur agreement, but Danath hangs back, glancing over his shoulder.
What if we do one more sweep for treasure down here? Or we could try to exorcise that wraith from the charnel room one more time. I just don't think I'm ready to move on.
Are you friggin'? Sanj blocks as Mandia's staff before it makes contact with her ribcage. Okay, the wraith it is. Another stultifyingly dull session ends. As soon as Bob's door closes behind Dan, the rest of the group reconvenes at the table. Dan's in a rut, Sanvi says. At this rate, we'll be stuck in the basement of Everdeep until our characters die a natural death. Amanda sighs. It's only been a month since his wife left him for her goat yoga instructor, Sanvi. Bob snorts.
Isabel was never the sharpest weapon in the armory. Leave a tenured professor for a guy who plays with farm animals?
Her loss, Amanda says, taking a sip of scotch. She ticks off on her fingers. Dan is loyal and smart and kind, plus he's a great dad. She catches the looks from the other three. What?
Do you like Dan?
Bob asks, squinting at Amanda as if she's a particularly problematic line of code. What? No! Amanda crosses her arms in front of her reddening face. No. Because that would be against the group rules, Sanvi crows, her glasses slipping down her nose. Thou shalt not date within thy adventuring party, be thou in Everdeep or Earthside, intones the GM in a sepulchral tone. Amanda slams down her glass. It won't happen. She shakes her hair in front of her face, and from behind the blue curtain adds, that ship has sailed, and sunk, and decomposed.
Shame,
says Bob.
Welp, see y'all next week.
On the following Tuesday, players position their minis as the GM scans his notes. He checks his watch again. No word from Dan, but let's get started. Last session, the party had just entered the blood-drenched torture chamber when you were confronted with a brain flare. Bob shudders.
Those things are creepy as hell. Sorry I'm late,
Dan says, popping his head around the door to Bob's apartment. He grimaces.
Isabel had a last-minute schedule conflict, and my parents have the flu, so...
He comes in leading a tousle-headed little girl by one hand. She's sucking the thumb on her free hand. Hey, Rowan, Amanda calls, waving, and Rowan rewards her with a small, thumb-filled smile. The GM and Sanvi exchange pained looks. According to the group rules, Sanvi begins.
Row in your boat,
Bob yells.
Come sit with Uncle Bobby.
Rowan climbs onto the stool Bob pulls up for her and solemnly surveys the table. She removes her thumb long enough to ask, Can I play? The GM and Sanvi exchange another pained look. Dan hurriedly cuts in.
No, honey, look, I brought some snacks and your tablet, so you can sit on the couch and play your own game.
Rowan unplugs her thumb. Her lower lip trembles. I want to play with you. Amanda mouths, torture chamber, and makes a cutting motion at her neck.
Of course you can play with us, Macaroni, Bob says. But first, you have to build a character.
When the party rematerializes in the third level of Everdeep, 4 adult jaws drop. You, enter a room covered in, a carpet of purple flowers. Awaiting you in one corner is a massive unicorn with rainbow wings and a glittering horn. Stop sniggering, Sanj.
I run over to the unicorn and get on its back,
Shrieks Princess Twinklesparkle, clapping her hands. Sanj rolls her eyes.
First, you have to do a charisma check,
The GM says, raising a finger. Princess Twinklesparkle rolls a 20. Asmandia claps, and Bork beams.
You're a natural, just like your daddy. Can I lift you into the saddle, Your Highness?
Dan scoops up a sleeping Rowan from Bob's couch and mouths a thank you to the group on his way out the door. She's still sucking her thumb. Bob high-fives the GM.
Thanks for improvising, man. Danny boy needed that.
Sanvi grumbles something as she ties her shoes. What did you say? Amanda asks.
I said, I didn't completely hate that,
Sanvi grumbles, a little louder this time. Amanda ruffles her hair affectionately. Aw, you know you liked it. Maybe you'll be a mommy one day. Sanvi shudders and departs. As Bob gathers up maps, minis, and bottles from the table, Amanda lingers in the doorway, fidgeting with her acid green motorcycle helmet. Bob points a half-full IPA bottle at her.
So, are you going to make a move?
Amanda throws up her hands, and the helmet hits the floor. What do you want me to say, Bob? That I had a thing for Dan before he met Isabel? Common knowledge. Do I still like him? Sure, but it's not that simple. If I take a risk in the game, I lose some health. Maybe a character I got attached to. But if I screw this up, I screw up for real. I screw up this. She motions at the table. And I lose Dan. Again. She's whispering now. They stare at each other a moment. Then Bob says,
I was only asking whether Asmandia was going to tame the unicorn.
Amanda slams the door in his face, only to open it a minute later. I forgot my helmet, she says loftily. Bob holds it out to her, but when she grabs it, he holds on.
You two make a good team.
In a fantasy world, she groans, tugging at the chin strap. He lets go.
I think it's worth rolling the dice.
Behind the rusted scrollwork of the metal gate, you see two red eyes burning in the darkness of the hallway, high above your heads. Whatever lurks there stands between you and the spiral stair, which will lead you to the top of Everdeep's tower, and the treasure you've been seeking.
I cast a spell of illumination,
Danoth says. And I cast a shield spell in front of the party, Asmandia adds.
Perfect.
They grin at each other, then Asmandia drops her eyes. Danoth fiddles with his lute. The GM clears his throat.
Anyway, the light of Asmandia's staff falls on a lich, waiting behind the gate. 9 feet tall, and clad in wispy black rags, the undead creature is the stuff of nightmares. It strikes out with a skeletal hand, but the metal barrier between it and your party seems to be enchanted and resists the blow.
Let's break it down,
says Bork. He gives the gate an exploratory shove.
A dark force flows from the metal to your body, Bork. You begin to seize and froth. Roll a constitution check.
Come on, I need something higher than a 12.
You succeed. Barely. You break free and fall to your knees, retching. You've lost half your health. The lich on the other side laughs a rattling, throaty laugh.
Sanj backs away.
I'm not touching that gate. Not with my vulnerability to undead things. Asmandia and Danoth, this is your department.
Danoth comes forward and casts a few experimental spells, but none of them land. Asmandia joins him and they confer, heads almost touching. Then they take hands. I cast Sacred Ray, Asmandia says.
And I buff her with Ode of Empowerment.
Danoth says.
Asmandia's amplified incantation causes the stones of the castle to tremble. The iron scrollwork of the gate glows purple, brighter and brighter until it becomes light itself and dissipates in the deep darkness.
Asmandia looks at her hand, which Danoth is still holding. Gently, she pulls away. Danoth looks startled and opens his mouth to say something.
With a hiss, the Lich comes forward.
Hooray, you did it! Now we get to die!
Squeaks Sange.
What now?
Says Danoth, uncharacteristically off balance.
Try smiting it,
Bork says. Sange rolls, but her 4 barely makes a dent in the Lich.
Get close to me, everyone,
Asmandia calls.
I'm casting a ward, but it won't stretch far.
Danoth moves so close, he's almost nose to nose with her.
Illusions and non-magical weapons won't work on a Lich.
Cheeks aflame, she looks down at her boots of striding, which suddenly seem very interesting.
So what do we do?
What we do is stop here, because I have an early shift at the hospital.
Bob yawns as the GM removes his hand from the board.
The Lich will have to wait a week.
Next to him, Amanda's cheeks are still on fire. Sanvi and the GM say their goodnights, but Amanda and Dan linger, talking strategy for next Tuesday's battle with the Lich.
Closing time, kids,
Bob calls from his bedroom.
Shut the door on your way out.
Dan gets up and stretches with false casualness.
Hey, if you're not busy, we could keep talking over coffee. Isabel's got Rowan at her place tonight, so...
He trails off, scratching the back of his neck. Amanda holds her motorcycle helmet to her chest like a shield.
I am. Busy, I mean. I'm busy. With all the things.
She's babbling now.
Busy, busy, busy.
From Bob's bedroom, there's a very audible groan.
Cool, yeah.
Dan gives her a half smile and opens the door for her.
Maybe another time when you're less busy.
Maybe,
agrees Amanda, giving him a wide berth on her way out. She speed walks down the corridor and dives through the stairwell door. Dan follows more slowly and opts for the elevator. As he waits for the doors to open, he bangs his head gently on the wall.
Rules, rules, rules,
he mutters in time with each impact.
Boss battle day,
Bob crows as the group assembles around the table the following Tuesday.
Let's send this Lich back to the hell from whence it came.
As Sanvi and the GM debate the merits of adamantine armor, Amanda stacks and unstacks her dice, all the while shooting nervous glances at the door. She looks away the moment Dan enters, so she doesn't catch his tentative smile and wave. Bob rolls his eyes.
We've been playing this campaign for almost 7 months,
the GM says.
And we haven't lost a character. Yet.
He grins wolfishly.
The Lich slashes through Bork's boarhide breastplate, and he faints. The undead creature rounds on Danoth, who is busy healing Sange's lacerated arm.
We're screwed,
Sange yelps, drawing her sword awkwardly with her left hand.
Hold still. Just a few more seconds,
Danoth gasps. His health is almost as low as Sange's.
I can't hold the Lich off forever,
Asmandia grunts.
It's going to break through my dome of protection next turn. What's the plan?
Sange asks, tightening her jaw against the pain.
The plan went down the castle privy 3 turns ago,
Danoth pants.
Okay, Asmandia is carrying the Orb of Perspicacity,
Sange says.
If she can place it atop the obelisk of inscrutableness, evil will no longer hold sway over the castle. At this point, Danoth and I are cannon fodder.
Asmandia clutches the orb to her chest,
What? No, we're going to do this together.
She's my priority,
Danath agrees.
Our priority.
He corrects himself. To Ismandia, he says,
We'll keep the Lich busy as long as we can. You make a break for the obelisk.
Sanj rakes a hand through her silver hair.
I can't do much against the Lich, but I'll amplify Ismandia's armor.
At that moment, the Lich shatters the dome of protection and, raising his scythe of dark energy, aims an eviscerating slash at Ismandia.
I step in the way and take the hit,
Danath says.
No!
Ismandia yells.
I raise my staff to deflect the enemy's blow.
Let me take the hit,
Danath snaps.
I can't work the Orb of Perspicacity, but you can. I should be the one taking damage.
I don't need saving,
Ismandia snaps back.
You have a glass jaw, you stupid bard.
From behind her shield, Sanj calls.
I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but the Lich is going to kill us all if we don't try something. Now.
Danath steps close to Ismandia.
Mandy, you know I have to do this. Let me go. It's not like I'll die in real life.
Ismandia turns away, her hands over her face.
The Lich lashes out at Danath's neck with its scythe.
The GM says inexorably.
Make a death save.
The adventurers go still as the clatter of a die across a tabletop sounds then.
Shit. Tough luck, Dan.
When the GM pulls everyone earthside, Bob bows his head.
A moment of silence for Danath, our crazy-ass bard.
He tips over the bard mini on the map. Sanvi slams her hand down on the tabletop and utters a string of well-chosen words.
Rules, Sanvi,
Bob says.
Exceeding 4 obscenities means you buy beer next time.
He throws a hairy arm around Dan's neck.
You okay, buddy?
Dan winces and rolls his head side to side.
I can feel that scythe action, even on this side.
He nudges the GM.
Just when I unlock level 7 spells, you have to go and kill my character.
GMs don't kill characters,
the GM says with a saintly expression.
Stupid players kill characters.
Burn,
Sanvi says. Amanda wipes her eyes surreptitiously. It was beyond stupid, she says gruffly. I'm not sure if you're a hero or an idiot.
It's just a game,
Sanvi says.
What are you getting all emo?
She cuts off with a yelp when Bob kicks her under the table.
It's not about the game,
Amanda hisses. Sanvi flinches at her tone.
It's... Never mind.
She rises so quickly her leg jostles the table, and Bob's beer topples, creating a foamy new lake on the game map.
Hey!
The GM yelps. Sanvi leaps for the paper towels, and Bob dams the flow with his hands. Dan sits still among the chaos, looking dazed. The sound of a motorcycle revving breaks him from his reverie, and he goes to the window to look out. Bob joins him.
You're forgetting an important rule, Danomatic.
Dan doesn't take his eyes from the scene outside. Bob's sigh fogs the glass.
You can come away from Everdeep with a little buzz, or a little bruise, but you can't bring items back with you.
He taps a finger against the window.
Or people.
Dan rests his forehead on the cool glass.
I know. Do you?
Bob asks.
One of these days, she's going to ride away and not come back. This is the real world, Dan. You can't just roll up another Amanda.
He leaves Dan alone with the lonely view of an empty parking lot.
What's Dan's excuse for skipping Everdeep tonight?
Sanvi asks as she flips through the GM's well-thumbed Tome of Monsters.
Schedule conflict,
Bob says.
His therapist moved his session.
Amanda slaps her dice down. Life goes on without Dan. Are we going to chit-chat or play?
Your party returns to the hallway where the Lich still prowls. Its shroud flutters as it goes through a door on the far end of the corridor.
I pick up Danath's remains, Asmandia says thickly. The GM's disembodied voice sounds disgusted.
Okay?
Sanj cranes her neck, trying to see where the Lich has gone.
Wait, aren't we going to follow that thing?
We owe Danath a decent burial first, Asmandia says. And I need some closure. The following month, Sanvi drums her fingers on a player's guidebook as the GM lays out the map.
This is the third time Dan's missed game night,
she says. Fourth, Amanda corrects dully. With a finger, she nudges the mini of Danath, standing on the sidelines of the game map.
Even worse,
Sanvi says.
According to group rules, anyone who misses 5 sessions in a row can be replaced. My cousin could.
We're not replacing Dan,
Bob cuts in.
He's had a hard year, and he needs our support. He'll come back when he's ready.
He cuts a look at Amanda, but she's staring hard at the far wall. Guys, I think I should quit, she says out of the blue. The GM pops his head over the screen like a prairie dog.
What? Quit?
Squawks Sanvi.
Why would you quit? With Dan MIA, we can't afford to lose another player.
Amanda picks up the Danath mini between black-nailed thumb and forefinger.
Dan might feel more comfortable if I wasn't here.
He's not avoiding you,
Bob rumbles.
Or at least not for the reason you think.
At the end of the session, Bob watches from the window as a lone motorcyclist rides figure eights in the empty parking lot. He turns back to the GM and Sanvi.
Some rules are meant to be broken, you know.
The GM makes a thoughtful noise, but Sanvi's forehead creases.
What, like, don't do someone else's math? Because I'm pretty sure you miscalculated the damage that owlbear did to Bork.
Bob and the GM exchange long-suffering looks.
Guess again,
the GM says. Sanvi frowns.
The GM never has to bring snacks?
Nope.
No phones at the table? Don't tell your therapist about the alternate reality you inhabit.
Bob takes Sanvi by the shoulders and propels her to the window. He stabs a thick finger at Amanda, still riding infinity loops.
Fine,
Sanvi huffs.
If ending this drama means we can get back to the game, I'm willing to pass an amendment.
When Amanda opens Bob's apartment door the next Tuesday, Dan is the only one at the table. She freezes in the doorway, and he gives her a weak wave.
Hey.
Warily, she takes the seat farthest from him and sets her helmet on the table. Where's everyone else? Dan points to a piece of paper in the middle of the map of Everdeep. On it, in Bob's heinous scrawl, are written 2 large words in all caps. Fix it. An uncomfortable silence follows. Amanda fidgets with her chainmail bracelet, and Dan folds and refolds the edge of his character sheet.
Been a while,
he says at last.
What, have you been up to?
Amanda doesn't look up. Same as always.
So, terrorizing undergrads and cheating death on the freeway?
His grin fades when Amanda's expression remains stony. He clears his throat.
I was sorry to miss almost 2 months of the game.
I,
had some things I had to figure out.
And did you? Dan's ears redden.
Yeah, I think so.
That's good, Amanda says politely. More silence. Dan licks his lips and tries again.
I was sorry to hear about Ismandia.
Yeah, well, Amanda says, looking anywhere but at him.
How did she die?
A small disagreement. She squints at the ceiling. With a Balrog. Dan winces.
I'll miss her.
Amanda lifts a shoulder. She wasn't anything special.
I disagree.
Amanda glances at him, and he forges ahead.
Look, the others are expecting us to roll up new characters. But what if you made a character almost exactly like Ismandia?
Amanda narrows her eyes. Surely you give me more creative credit than that.
I do. You make amazing, nuanced characters with deep backstories. But maybe we could have a second chance.
He's babbling now.
Only if you want to. I was just thinking I could tweak a few things about Danath, and then we could try again.
Now Amanda is staring at him intently, and he's the one who looks away. A second chance, she says, tapping her pen against her lips. Why? Dan scratches his neck.
One of the things I talked with my therapist about was that maybe I hadn't really appreciated, Ismandia the first time around. I realized we could make a good team.
A good team? Amanda's voice is dangerously quiet. We've been a good team. Ever since Bob invited me to play Everdeep with you guys, what, a decade ago? Dan winces at her scare quotes.
9 years and 4 months. But that's not what I meant.
Amanda digs her hands into her blue curls. Then what did you mean, Dan? What? Because being with you in Everdeep isn't cutting it for me. Dan leans across the table, pushing the map aside.
That's what I meant. That. I want to be with you there. And here. And everywhere.
There is an excruciatingly long silence. Amanda crosses her arms. Took you long enough? Dan's smile is rueful.
9 years.
And 4 months, she says, her mouth twisting. But what should I expect from a bard with a 6 intelligence? Dan laughs, and his shoulders relax from their tense right angles.
So you'll do it?
Amanda gazes dreamily into the middle distance. Osmandia will be an elven wizard who wields a staff of ice steel. After being ostracized from her clan, she has roamed the wasteland alone, a law unto herself. She has a stoat familiar and enjoys moonlit rides with balding bards. Dan scribbles furiously on his character sheet.
Undath is a rakishly handsome, definitely balding bard who... Just kiss already,
a muffled voice says from somewhere in the room. Dan and Amanda jump, and the door to Bob's coat closet swings open to reveal Sanvi, Bob, and the GM wedged into the small, cluttered space. Sanvi bursts out, fanning herself with Bob's fedora. Ye gods, I was suffocating in there. The pace of your courtship is positively glacial, you two. Can we play now? Amanda gets up and takes the chair next to Dan. She lifts her chin defiantly at the intruders. What about the rules? Sanvi mutters something as the GM sets up his screen, and Bob plunks a bowl of chips on the table. What's that? I can't hear you, Sanvi, Amanda says. I said, some rules were meant to be broken, Sanvi says sullenly. Amanda takes Dan's hand. Then we're ready for the next adventure.
And welcome back. That was Point of Order by Taryn Fraser, and it was her first time on an escape artist show, but not her first story. So if you pop on over to tarynfraser.com/read, you can find plenty more there to dig into. Taryn sent us these notes along with her story. I learned everything I know about RPGs from my husband, a long-time gamer. In these games, players bring their own narratives and experiences to the table. Group storytelling gives participants a way to process and connect. So, while I approach this story with tongue-in-cheek, I really do believe in the transformative power of gaming. Thank you, Taryn, for the thoughts and the story. It will probably come as no surprise to all of you that I am a massive nerd and have been role-playing in one form or another for about 25 years at this point. To be honest, I'm a Johnny-come-lately to D&D itself, that's only been the last couple of years, but there were games of Warhammer Fantasy roleplay back in my adolescence, and there has been a lifetime of LARP, live-action roleplay, since my late teens, through multiple characters and settings. The latter, sadly, got very much shut down through the lockdown stages of our ongoing pandemic, and made me realise just how important roleplay is for my mental health. Not just for the fantasy of getting 8 hours rest a night and all your problems having causes you can address, as the old jokes go, but because it transpires that getting out of my own head for 6 hours is an essential pressure release valve for me. More than that, though, it's been important for helping me work out who I am and who I want to be. Anytime you create a character, you're taking a piece of yourself and exaggerating it, re-examining yourself through that facet of your whole, stretching yourself in a safe way, a permitted way. I often feel bound and constrained by the expectations of people around me. My behaviour is defined by who they know me as already. So roleplay is an opportunity to escape those predefined shapes and present as more gregarious, or more selfish, or more carefree. And, as today's story talks about, it brings you closer together. Just because you experience an adventure through shared narration around a table rather than in person doesn't make it any less of an adventure. You still faced the troubles, solved the problems and made the decisions, worked together and learned together and laughed together. It is, absolutely, group storytelling, and the only real victory condition is the satisfaction of having told a good story together, of having teed each other up, shared the spotlight, guided and guarded each other. So, to the group I DM for, Amber and James and Lana and Leona, and to my 2 DMs, Martin and Alex, and the other players in those games, Kate and Sheila and Sadie and Jack and Tommy. To Chris and Jane and Gary and everyone else who I've larped with so much down the years. Here's to the stories. Those we still recall after time out, and those we've still to tell. As part of our 15th anniversary celebrations, we're asking you to send in your favourite stories from our archive. If you've got a suggestion, go to our website, PodCastle.org, and look for the pinned post up top for details. This week, your narrator for today, Danny Daly, has a recommendation. Another End of Empire by Tim Pratt, from episode 88. This was one of the first episodes I ever heard of any audio fiction podcast, yet even over 12 years later, I still find myself thinking about it and grinning. The narration is sublime, the story engaging and funny, and stories hosted by MK Hobson were always fun. Thank you, Danny. That was our show for this week. On behalf of everyone at PodCastle, your co-editors Shingai Enjeri Kagunda and Eleanor R. Wood, assistant editor Caitlin Zavanovich, audio engineers Devin Martin and Eric Valdes, forum moderator Ossicat and our many wonderful first readers, Andrew Cahoe, Craig Jackson, Amalia Harrington, Julia Patt, Kieran Corsini, Ryan Cole, Sarah S. Messenger, Sophie Barker, Shrikripa Krishna Prasad, Tava Nova, Tierney Bailey, Zeev Witties, and myself, Matt Dovey. Thank you for letting us share another story with you. The legal bit. PodCastle is part of the Escape Artists Foundation, a 501c3 non-profit, and this episode is distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can share it, and please do, but you cannot sell it and you cannot change it. If you want specifics, check creativecommons.org. Our music is by Shiva in Exile. Everything we do on PodCastle is 100% donor funded, and if you'd like to support what we and the rest of EA do, please join us on our Patreon at patreon.com/EA Podcasts. Prefer another method? There's details for supporting us via Twitch, Amazon Prime, Ko-fi and PayPal on escapeartist.net. We'll be back next Tuesday with another fantastic tale. In the meantime, you might care to check our sister podcasts, Escape Pod for science fiction, Pseudopod for horror, Cast of Wonders for YA speculative fiction, and Cat's Cast for speculative cat stories. If your heart belongs to us, though, we'll see you next week. Be safe and be kind.